Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. After a small break, we're back as Dallas King and myself make our way through the A24 filmography and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera. In this episode, I welcome fellow Scot Gayle Rankin, who has appeared in film, TV and stage, and most recently in Alex Garland's Men as Riley, the best friend of Harper, played by Jessie Buckley. Harper retreats alone to the beautiful English countryside, hoping to find a place to heal. But someone, or something, from the surrounding woods appears to be stalking her. Thanks so much to Gayle for joining me, and I hope you too will enjoy this conversation. What inspired you to sort of pursue a career in acting?
I actually, I grew up in a household, my mum certainly, and my grandfather actually used to watch a lot of classic films, like Westerns and a lot of movie musicals. And, you know, I was kind of immersed in that kind of like old Hollywood world when I was a kid, and I was always very enamored by it. But I was never a very outgoing child. Like when I was young, I didn't speak until I was like 3. My sister used to speak for me. So I was quite shy, which I think is quite common for creative people. I think it's assumed that they're extroverts, but I'm actually kind of an introverted extrovert. I was really excited about the kind of the idea of storytelling. And I actually remember I was sitting in a Starbucks when I was probably like 8 or 9. Don't know why I was on my own. I was. And I was just kind of late. It was on Sauchiehall Street. And I was looking at all of the people just kind of passing by. And I just remember kind of having this like really specific, overwhelming feeling of like, God, I would love to know what it's like to be every single one of these people. And I think that's what's always driven me toward. There have been many kind of decisions in the process and things driving me, but like I was always as a child just really fascinated by people, and also just couldn't ever make a decision about what I wanted to be. So, you know, it's a kind of a cheat's way to get to explore so much of like humanity and different versions of life, you know.
People watching on Sauchiehall Street never gets old. So many kind of characters from all walks of life.
Yeah, it really, I'm so fascinated and dumbfounded by humanity. And there's something that you just can't, there's no solving it, you know, there's no understanding it. And I think that's like what draws me and what keeps me engaged with making things. It's like, why do people continue to do Shakespeare? It's like, oh, they've done it before. And it's like, we are never going to solve it. There's no solving it. There's no doing Hamlet. There's no getting it right, you know?
And you've managed to go from Scotland, and I'd read that you were like the first Scot to win a place at Juilliard School in New York. And like, you always hear about like Juilliard, like, oh, this actor went there, every actor went there. But like to be the first, I was actually really stunned by that revelation. I was like, surely there must have been other Scots that had made it before you, but no, you were the trailblazer.
No one, I think it just wasn't on anyone's radar as like, and I actually remember there were a lot of people who were a bit like, I think it's within our culture to kind of like keep your head down, do your work, don't get above your station. And I actually really appreciate that kind of like humble nature of our people. But I for some reason had this kind of ballsy gene that I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So it was like a combination of like naivete and balls, you know. And I was like, I'm going to go.
And what is Juilliard like as a kind of for an actor, and what is that experience like?
Very rigorous, very community based. There's only 18 actors in every class, so you get very close with your, I guess it's like you're like a troupe of actors, you're a company. And that's kind of how they build it. A company of actors who we make work, we rehearse plays in the evening and do classes from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 p.m. at night, take a dinner break, and then rehearse a play at night or project. And so it's totally immersive and totally rigorous. And And it definitely like breaks you down, you know, and there's like horror stories of like, I lost myself at Juilliard, you know. I think there's a lot of encouragement.
You've then sort of managed to turn that into like a career, like you've been in a range of film, TV, and theatre. We'll dive into a couple of them, but what have been some of the highlights of your career so far?
It's funny, like I come from the theater world, so and that's kind of where my heart and soul is. Not that I love film desperately, and I think it's just kind of an extension. But I would say I did a production of Hamlet at the Public Theatre in New York, and it was directed by a man named Sam Gold, and Oscar Isaac played Hamlet, and Keegan Michael Key played Horatio, and it was a phenomenal cast, and I played Ophelia, and it was one of the most kind of profound experiences in my life. Working with Oscar, working with Sam, the director who I'd worked with before. And it definitely opened a lot of doors for me, both personally and creatively, but also, you know, professionally. It's kind of how I ended up finding my way to Alex Garland. But that's definitely a highlight. I did a television show called Perry Mason, which is also television is such an interesting muscle, you know, and it's completely, I would say, the opposite of theater, you know, the way it's handled and structured and shot and presented. And but it was kind of I worked with Tim Van Patten, who's an incredible creator, showrunner. He worked on Boardwalk Empire and The Sopranos, and he's an incredible force and a dear friend. And we had such an intimate experience on that show working with HBO as well. And I really felt like I could explore working on TV in a different way. And it felt very unique and difficult and challenging, but really, really rewarding. So I think those are
one of your roles I'm most keen to talk about. And it was when I was watching Men for the first time, I was like, oh, I recognize her from Her Smell. It's like easily one of my favorite films of the past few years. I think it's criminally underrated. And I mentioned it when we were talking there, like I was lucky enough to experience it in a cinema, and like I'm on the record as saying this, I wouldn't lie, like I remember thinking I would maybe have to leave the cinema in that first 20 minutes. It was so anxiety inducing and stressful to watch. What was it like to work on Her Smell, and what's your kind of reflections on that role?
God, I need to tell Alex this. I think, you know, that's how he wanted to approach the movie, and each act had a kind of different nervous system and different way it was shot and different approach. And definitely that first act is supposed to alienate absolutely and really separate the men from the boys a little bit in terms of like, is this where you want to be? Do you want to be here? And I think when I was cast and met Alex and met the team, I'm working with Sean Price Williams, who's such an incredible DP, and it was such a cohesive process that I think everyone really wanted to kind of like build a world and really build a band. Like me and Lizzie and Aggie spent a lot of time together, and we all had to learn our instruments. So it was really, really immersive. And the way they built the sets, we built most of the sets on a stage from scratch in Queens. So we kind of built the backstages of everything that you saw. So it was almost, again, going back to the theater, it's kind of like rehearsing a play. We would spend the first day of every shooting week fully rehearsing the whole act, because some of those are full oneers, some of those shots, and so we rehearsed it like a play. And so it was weirdly not as anxiety producing as you would think. It's interesting, like how a movie ends up coming about is the sum of all of its parts, but it was actually like very precise and very controlled is a bad word, but it was just very specific, and I felt very taken care of, and everything was like actually really gentle. Alex is a really gentle director, and it's funny, like I had all that writing on my arms, different hair, and everything's very chaotic. And I think a lot of people think like, wait, was this improvised? Was this actually every single syllable, every piece of Sharpie on my body was really designed? I think is really masterful and really the art of it, you know.
There's just so much attention to detail in that film. I rewatched it the other day, and like it was on the Blu-ray where you could get it, where there's like stills, and it was just all the album artwork, and there's like you and someone else like posed together for art. It just, everything about it felt like genuinely real. Like you could felt like it was a documentary kind of brought to life. It was just incredible filmmaking.
That's really cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, it meant a lot. There was a lot of work put into it.
So do you still play the drums, or have you lost that skill?
Kind of lost that skill, sadly. I mean, I kind of I'm a coordinated being. And I love music. I love music. I use it a lot to inspire me in my work. I would pick them back up though.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you like King Tut's one day performing on stage. You could kind of talk about so many of your different roles. Like you become one of those actors where you're like, oh, I recognize her from that thing. I didn't even realize you'd been in Glow. Like it's a show I've not got around to yet, but I got really excited about checking out after watching that Kate Nash documentary. It was like, oh, I saw that was on Netflix, but I had no idea what it was. Like you've been in so much. Like I didn't even realize you'd been in the Meyerowitz stories with Noah Baumbach. What do you kind of look for? Because like you clearly pick a lot of diverse like styles, roles, collaborators. What do you kind of look for when you get these different type of opportunities?
You throw your hat in the ring for as much as you can, and you kind of see where the chips land, you know, as an actor at a certain point in your career. But like I'm certainly entering a part of my career where I feel like I can really engage, narrow in my focus a bit more. And I don't like being pigeonholed. It's not something like I enjoy. Like I said, like my approach with acting is just all about like being curious about humanity. And so I like to challenge myself. And I don't think that will stop. I think I would like to kind of direct myself in a more in a different direction potentially, because I have played a lot of characters, you know, but it wasn't really intentional. It's just like my gut. It's just my instinct. It's just my instinct to if I can kind of find something in a character that like sets me alight, I follow that.
Noah Baumbach is like one of my favorite directors, and like I saw recently, like he's getting like, I think Netflix are giving him like 150 million to make his new movie, which is just, I can't quite imagine that. But what was he like as a director to work with?
Noah's amazing. He's an amazing person, and I knew him a little bit like socially before we worked together, and that was a really fun process. I was really intimidated, you know. It was like Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler and Beth Marvel in a scene, and I'm just like, you know, like it was intimidating, but it really kind of was such a good group of people, and I really loved it. It was Robbie Ryan was the DP, who I'm just like, I bow down. I think he's incredible. He's a master. And so is Noah. And Noah has his own particular way of working. He shoots a lot. He shoots many, 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 many takes, which I'm sure you know. And there's a kind of he's very thorough, very thorough. He totally knows what he wants, but I think he also like really is curious about like what it means to allow a scene to like fully run its course and then come back around and do it all again, and then like, you know, see what life happens. I think that's why his films are really alive.
For a lot of people, we've just seen you in cinemas, well, in the UK especially, over the past weekend with the release of Men. When did you sort of first hear about the opportunity for Men, and for a role that potentially is just like recording on a phone? How did they convince you to do a role potentially like that?
Well, I was in the UK during the pandemic, and I had gotten word that the movie was being made, and I'm a huge fan of Alex Garland, and I'd worked with Oscar, and Oscar and I are friends, and I really wanted to read the script. And I mean, with the title, like, man, it's not, you don't not read that script. And so I read it, and I was on the page. It's truly stunning. It's like, and I don't mean to pigeonhole it in this way, because it's more than this, but it's like a poem, it's like there's no fat on it. There's no fat on that script. And the role that I read for Riley was a bit more expanded than what it kind of ended up being in the film, but understandably so, because I think the film moved in a certain direction, So when I read it, I was like very excited, and I'm a huge fan of Rory, huge fan of Jesse, and a huge fan of Papa. So I was just like, well, I would do crafty on this movie. And then Alex and I met over Zoom, and he had seen Hamlet some years before. And we just had a very, very connected, easy, rich conversation, about why he was making this movie. He wanted to hear from me too, because I think she's the only other woman in the movie aside from the lovely police officer. And I think that's kind of symbolic in some ways. And she holds kind of a weight that is kind of ephemeral because it's on a phone, and it was all tricky. Like, we ended up actually, Alex really wanted me as involved as he could. So I was in the Cotswolds with everyone the whole time. We shot those scenes live because, like, it's Alex, so he's going to do it. Like, it's like, if you're going to do it, then do it, and it was challenging, but it was really, but also not at the same time. It was like, well, this is what it is. There's technical difficulties, and like, it's really interesting because it's not like the kind of performance that I'm used to kind of engaging, like, but it was what was required. And then the payoff was that, like, she shows up at the end, and there's kind of a world beyond the phone, which I think allows the audience to, like, really expand their brains to what that means.
What was it like sort of shooting? Because like that was kind of what I would hope for. Like, I always think back to like a TV show like 24, where it was always like they had the people just next by, just like recording all the audio so you could genuinely kind of react to it. With these calls, were you like in another room, or were you sort of in the room? What was the kind of, how was it all shot and put together?
Yeah, I was we shot at this like kind of crazy old house in the Cotswolds, and that was fully like dressed and decorated and done for all that. And then there was kind of a smaller farmhouse about 100 yards away, and that was fully dressed as like Riley's apartment in London. So it was like a full separate set, but like right next door. And they had I had a little team with me, and Alex and the team would be in the house, and we would just do these kind of crazy, and they would be recording. They set it up that they would be recording on my phone. So I would roll kind of on my own footage. It was nuts. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I was almost like, are we doing this? Like, is this happening? Yeah.
And did that take some getting used to, like, kind of recording down the phone, like holding it in a way that's like, this is visually interesting for the audience? Or do you sort of go, well, I've just got to be genuine of how I'd maybe kind of record it? Or
we thought about that a lot, and I thought about that before we shot. I was like, there's so many people FaceTime in such crazy circumstances. I'm like, I've had FaceTimes from my sister when she's in the bath, or like, did the phone, you can't even see the person. Like, there's so much opportunity, but like, I think we didn't want to like push too much abstraction. We really wanted to ground it in like true reality of just like, yeah, this is what's happening, and this is how I look, and sometimes it didn't look great, and like, that's fine. And there is just a kind of humbleness about that approach.
And did you like sort of at the end of these kind of shooting days, were you able to kind of all come together, or with like COVID, did you sort of have to basically stay in your like home from home?
Yeah, it was sadly during a really tricky time of COVID, so we were all quite separate, but we did get to spend time outside and have a glass of wine outside, and it was nice.
And what was it like sort of being part of like this team and watching, say, like Rory take on these different roles? What was it? It must have been quite surreal to almost watch it from the kind of outside and one character at a time.
It really was. I mean, I was totally just in awe. It was so much work, and like even all the prosthetics he had to do, just hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of sitting in the chair, but also like all of the prep work that he did for all of those characters was just so inspiring. We actually spent a few days, a couple of weeks actually, spread out over some time rehearsing. Alex has a house in the Cotswolds, and we went there and rehearsed a little bit, and to even just do a read through and have Rory kind of just take these really subtle, very specific turns into these completely different men. But the through line being Rory was also just really chilling and like, yeah, it was amazing.
And what was Garland like as a director to work with?
He would come over, and we would kind of set up what the shot was going to be, and Rob Hardy too. Like we'd have to light it and still do all those kind of. He was very specific about that. But I find and have found him just to be so deeply collaborative and very loyal and very trusting, and just truly all about the truth, seeking the truth in every moment, and also unafraid to follow his kind of internal life as well. He's such a rich internal life, visually and literary. That's not a word, but like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of his writing, that he knows what he wants, but he's also so open to collaborating. And yeah, I loved working with them. I really adore him. Yeah.
I've always found him an interesting director. I don't know why, like he's someone I remember just from those early days of like The Beach, and then a lot of his like collaboration with Danny Boyle. I always like considered him almost like that partnership. I always had in my head for years that he was Scottish as well, potentially, just with that involvement with Danny Boyle and all the work that he'd done. And it's been so brilliant to see how his career has grown from being someone that was just, he was a writer to like working on films and now directing some of these amazing films, and what he's like going to be working on next. It's just been quite incredible to chart that kind of journey, I think.
Totally. He's unstoppable. And I admire him so much. And DNA as well as a company. And I think probably the Scottish thing too, because of Kevin and Andrew McDonald involved with DNA, who are Scottish. Like I found it really comforting to be in the company of all those creators, because there's a real groundedness to like what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it's just so rare. And to have A24 involved in that on the American side just felt very right. And it feels like such a good collaboration. I mean, it's been tried and tested, with the Ex Machina.
And I think they've got, was it Civil War they're going to do next as well together. Like they seem to have really found like a good home for each other. Because like, it felt like when like, say Annihilation came out, it's just like Paramount just like throwing the film to like Netflix, bro. That film should have been in like, I wanted to see and experience that in cinemas. And, you get the impression that like A24 and DNA, they want to get these films into cinemas so people can go, I saw that film and get a reaction from it that, as much as a film like Annihilation or Men or especially Our Smell, they'll play well at home. But if you play it in a cinema, it provokes you in different ways and gets a reaction out of you that can be positive, challenging, that if you've got your phone in front of you or you're distracted, you're maybe not going to get. We need more of these sorts of Alex Garland films in the cinema, like even if it's the counter programming on a Jubilee weekend, just get them out there so people can enjoy them, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think they're very like-minded, A24 and DNA, in that way. So I felt it was a really cool collaboration.
And what was Jessie Buckley like to be as a scene partner? How did you two get on as building up that friendship and relationship? Did you kind of make a sort of backstory together about this friendship, or did you sort of just stick to what you had on the page?
Yeah, no, we definitely did. We spent some time together before we started shooting, and we're both Celtic girls, It was really, I have such great admiration for her and her journey and her as an artist and how she attacked this project and how vulnerable it was for her and for Alex and for Rory and for all of us in Papa. Like all of us kind of really in some way like poured our emotional energy into it to kind of because it's interesting, the title of the movie is Men, and it is Jesse's story, but is it Jesse's story? Do you know, it's all very it's I hesitate to even say that, because once you say that out loud, I feel like there's a counter argument. And that I don't, yeah, but Jessie and I, yeah, I love her. I love her. We had a great time. We collaborated really well. Yeah, we're really different people, but yeah, worked great. It was great.
And with sort of like your character appears at the end of the film, like I think it feels like a whole point you're building up that this character is going to kind of come and save the day, but you kind of appear this post-credit sequence, and you're pregnant as well, which none of us, there was no indication of that in the previous scenes. What was your kind of theory potentially behind sort of your character's appearance at the end?
I don't really have a theory about it. I mean, I do think there is, you know, a way to take it as like, yeah, she comes to save the day, but that's not what we end up seeing. You know, we see a woman, a pregnant woman whom we didn't realize was pregnant, and we kind of see a different woman. We see a different person appear, and we just see her appear and take something in. And I think that kind of ambiguity is what the film kind of deserves, because I don't think it's fair for me to say like, oh yeah, she comes to save her, because I actually don't think that that's the narrative, you know. It's definitely woven in there, but
yeah. And what's it been like for you? Like, the film's only just been out for like a weekend in the UK, and I just, as I said, love the time that they just dropped it during the Jubilee weekend. Like, you want to escape all this pomp and circumstance, go to the cinema and watch this movie. But for you, what's it been like? It's been out for a good maybe a month or so in America, watching all the kind of reactions, takes, surprise, shock of the film. Is that something that's made its way to you, or have you been kind of keeping an eye on?
I tend not to. The only kind of reactions I've had have been from people like close friends or people reaching out to me being like, oh, you know, like had to walk out or didn't, or like there's been a lot of extremity in a way that I'm so pleased about. I'm so pleased. But I find it really cool that so many people actually haven't asked me a lot of questions. Like, what's that about? It's like,
yeah, and I'm so conscious to do that as well. Like, you're like, it kind of feels at this stage it's still a mystery. People should see it, and then in a few years or two, let's all talk about it, what our takes are. Like, that's the way to do it just now. Like, you want someone to almost listen to this and go, I want to check that out and be surprised, as opposed to this is like the exclusive behind the scenes answer to every single thing.
yeah, I think that doesn't exist. What does exist is the film. And like you said, it's like, I do think you need to go and see it too. And it's so brave, I think, of Alex and Jessie and Rory and Papa and A24 and DNA to say, this is what it is. This is what we make. And it's like, it can be really divisive, and there's no clear-cut answers. Every single person has their own experience with it. And I think that's so profound.
Yeah, definitely. And when did you get to see it for the first time, and what was your kind of reaction to it?
I got to see it the night. We kind of had a small premiere in New York about a month ago, and that was the first time I was seeing it. And I was just really proud, actually. Or not that that should be a surprise, but like, I was really moved and really proud. I mean, I think I felt like you just don't get to be a part of films like this, you know, that are so raw and brave and unapologetic. I think it's a really unapologetic film, and I love that people have a lot of feelings about it. Because why are we doing this? You know?
I think there's been so many different takes, reviews, opinions. It's been quite fascinating to just kind of watch it. It'll be interesting. And it's so good that you're getting those. It's like, it must be so easy to release a film into the void and, you know, you don't get anything back. And this is like provoking so many thoughts and, you know, interpretations, which is really exciting.
Yeah. I feel really lucky, just really lucky.
So what's next for you? Men's just out. What's kind of on the horizon that people should keep an eye out for?
I am currently making a show with Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, who is an incredible playwright, but also an amazing television film writer. He's FX, and he are collaborating on an Octavia Butler book, an adaptation of an Octavia Butler book named Kindred. And it's going to be an eight-part series. 8-episode series, and I think it'll be out at some point late this year or next year. More genre kind of content coming from me.
Well, I look forward to that, and maybe I'll finally get around to watching Glow now. Like, you've given me the kick up the arse to do that, but thank you so much. Like, it's been really fascinating to kind of just dive into your career so far, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. I'm so glad you reached out.